All right, welcome to episode 42 of Dispersing the Cloud. This is the first episode that is not live. I am on a social media blackout for, I don't know how long. We'll find out. But eventually, I'm sure these will hit the internet at some point in time. Last week, we read Waking the Dead, and I was in Missouri doing some recording, and this week I hit up Fresno, trying to rebound from some flower business stuff I had. My partner quit on me, and so we just talked about resistance. We just talked about mobility and being able to turn on a dime. So here we go. I'm trying to turn on a dime right now. I teamed up with my buddy Nate's wife Amanda. She's doing November's design, and I'm trying to square everything away before the new year starts. So we got that going on. I did the first episode with my buddy Casey of The Advisor and the Beard. We'll see where that goes. We're going to film a couple more episodes probably this week, probably 2 more episodes if we can get a audience. The book, The Owl Who Asks Who, is coming out mid-November, so that's pretty awesome. And let's see, what is my process for this week? You know, part of my process, I'm doing a social media blackout. I reread this week. I reread The Alchemist, and I reread Richest Man in Babylon for 2 reasons. Read Richest Man in Babylon to refocus myself on my finances, and I reread The Alchemist to reassure myself of my path that I'm on. I've mentioned to you guys over the last year during this process that there are some really, really hard times and some really dark times in pursuing your own personal legend. That's a quote from The Alchemist. And right now I'm going through some dark ones, man. There's definitely some hardcore moments of doubt. But there's an awesome part of the book where the alchemist hits this, he's just a boy at the time. He hits this wall and he gets stuck. He gets bamboozled by a thief, and he steals all his money, and the boy is stuck in a foreign land, and he has no sheep because he's a sheep herder, and he has no way to get home. And he ends up having to work at a glass store for a glass merchant to save up enough money to go home and get sheep. He ends up doing that, and then at the very end of saving up, he realizes that he can always go home, and he decides to take the money and continue on his journey. Right now, part of this double down deal that I wanted to do in 2018 of getting a full-time job is me taking my stop at the glass store and covering up some debts that I went into to start projects. The Josh and the Sock Army book is moving, but it's not moving fast enough to pay back the debt that I owe on it. And so I think it's prudent for me to go back to work and pay those debts, and then go back to business as usual. And if I have to take a year off to do that, then I have to take a year off to do that. So I don't know how long this social media blackout's going to go, but I use social media to promote myself. And if I'm on social media, I'm going to want to promote myself. And right now I can't do that. I have to get a job, put my nose to the grindstone, knock out some debts, and then go back to work. So that's been my process this week. It's been incredibly difficult for me to make that decision. But it is what it is, and it's definitely not a failure. It's just a pause and reflect and kick some butt and get back in it when I've knocked out my debts. So rereading The Alchemist, some awesome quotes from him. I'm gonna be honest, I just started filming this thing and I totally forgot to write down my quotes, so I don't have them offhand. But the thing that I like about The Alchemist is the reminder that we are definitely put here for a purpose. You know, there is a reason we are on this planet, and it's not just to make ourselves happy. Some of us are put here to speak into the lives of children and be teachers and to build up our youth. Others are put here to actually like preach and minister to people who are broken. And some of us, I mean, for me, I feel like I was put here to sing and tell stories. Some of us are put here to write. Man, John Eldridge, like one of my favorite authors. God, that guy was put here to write. He spoke so much into my life over the last 5-6 years since I gave my life to Christ. Like, it's unbelievable. I love The Alchemist because it reinvigorates my heart for life. There's no other way to put it. There's a point in the story where the boy, who's not yet the alchemist, he's in the desert and they're at this oasis. And at this oasis, I mean, you got to picture an oasis is like this huge encampment. It's not like a little tiny, like, couple palm trees. It's like a giant encampment with tents for miles and miles and miles and miles, that women and children and old people and some soldiers, but it's a community, right? He's at this oasis and he goes to the well and he meets this girl, Fatimir, and he knows. He's like, Fatimir is the one for me. And so they're talking every day, and he falls in love with her, and she falls in love with him. And then it comes time for him to leave because, again, he's on his own personal legend, right? He had a vision that he's on a mission to accomplish, but he tells her, he says, you know, I would be happy to just stay. I would be happy to just be here. And there's an old man, or the desert tells him, basically, the old man and the desert are pretty much the same thing. You got to read the book. It's an amazing book. But he says, you would be happy here. You would love her and she would love you for a short time. And then after a little while, when your children were about mid-grown, you would hear the call from your legend, and you wouldn't be able to go then. And she would see it in you, and she would still love you, but that would hurt her to see that you didn't fulfill that part of why you're here. As much, as difficult as it is to do the things that you feel like you are put here to do on earth, and the sacrifices that you make, for anybody who's chasing something that's just insane, sometimes you have to make insanely big choices and insanely big sacrifices to do that. It's incredibly difficult and incredibly hard. And I've definitely had to make those decisions, and I haven't really regretted them. But that being said, that's just why I love that book. It's just such an amazing book that just brings anybody who reads it. I mean, it just brings your heart to life. So that was just an awesome book for me to read, and fit right into what I'm going through right now with my businesses. And again, I still love the resistance. I love the fact that I'm up against a wall and I'm having to get a real job to make stuff happen. I love the fact that my business partner quit on me, because again, that's expected. Man, 90% of businesses that start in America fail because it's freaking hard. Like, it's not easy to do this. It's incredibly hard. It's incredibly frustrating. And it's only those people with the tenacity to say, oh, I'm going to freaking make it work, to make it work. And, I mean, I'm pumped for you guys to see this. I know you're not going to see it for 3 or 4 months while I'm on my little blackout. And I'm refocusing and reorganizing and trying to get off the distraction of social media, because that's pretty much what it is sometimes. You can really just get sucked in. I didn't get to do my wilderness trip this year, where you go for 8-9 days without social media. I wasn't able to do that this year, and I think that has a little bit to do with me kind of needing a social media fast. I did a 1-month Instagram fast, but it only lasted like 3 weeks. I think this is a good time for me to just back off all social media and disappear for a little while, refocus. Still going to be doing videos, still going to be reading books, still going to be knocking them out. I wanted to talk again about Richest Man in Babylon. I love Richest Man in Babylon, but I have not been following the laws of gold for Richest Man in Babylon. 10% of everything you make, you put away in savings. I haven't been doing that. I do it every once in a while. I get some savings. And then I take my savings and I blow it on a really quick turnaround of something I need to do, or pay off a bill, or knock it out, and I don't have discipline there. And part of that is I don't have steady income. I have random income, and so I'll have moments of a burst of like 3-4 grand at a time, and then a lull for like 3-4 weeks, and then another burst of like 2 grand, and then a lull for 3 weeks, then a burst of 5, and it's just like this roller coaster, and it's tough to get in a pattern. Part of the thing that I'm gonna like about getting back to a full-time job for a couple years is to, one, I can still do music. I mean, I play at nights, and I play on Sundays mostly. So music isn't going to go away. I'm not going to be promoting it as much, but it's still happening. I'm actually playing next week in Valley Springs, and I got to find a way to promote that. Find out a way to promote that without hopping on social media. So I'm going to figure that out tonight. But yeah, I haven't been following the laws of gold, which is horrible. Like, what I really need to do as part of my process is write them down and just start following them, and just refuse to not follow them. That's one of the things I did today. I got a couple checks today, and I made sure that 10% went into 10% goes to my savings, 20% goes to my debt, and I live off the rest. Like, that's the rule. And it's such a joke, because when I go back to having full-time employment plus music income, like, it's going to be such a joke to do the laws of gold. It's so easy when you have steady income to follow them. I mean, I'm barely making any money, and I'm paying all my bills and sometimes following them. So when you're making decent money, plus a little extra with the other stuff that I do, I'm pumped about that, to kind of get those things in line. And my goal was to buy a house by the end of this year. I'm making a couple moves right now. It might happen, so that would be awesome. If it doesn't, it'll happen early 2018, which will be pretty jazz. Like freaking from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. No, which I will be pretty jazzed about. So I got that stuff going on. Richest Man in Babylon. Again, that's what I read those 2 books. I know they're I know they're repeats. I still count repeats as you read books, and a lot of the successful entrepreneurs and business people say, like, reread books so they ingrain in you, and they get ingrained into your brain. I guess, do they count towards my 60 this year? I don't know. I'm in the process. This next week I'm going to read like 2 other ones. I am reading Influence. Forget the author. I'll find out, and I'll tell you next week, obviously, when I read them. I think it's called Building Your Startup Brand. I think that's what it's called. They're both on marketing. I'm kind of doing some marketing research stuff. My thesis was in marketing and motivation for fan attendance, and I'm just kind of getting back to some of that. My full-time job is probably going to be somewhere in the arena where I'm going to be doing some marketing, maybe some search engine optimization stuff for different brands. So if anything, I'm going to come out of this with even more understanding of marketing and more power to build my own brands. So it's definitely not a stop, it's a sidestep. A sidestep to build my skill even more, get paid to do it, and continue doing music and recording. I'm super excited about this new studio that I've been using, and to have some extra cash. I've already allotted myself, I decided I'm going to give myself at least 10 grand a year of my own cash to record with. And so I'm jazzed about having that, ability to just spend my own cash to record. There's no limitations on that anymore. And then that's just going to let me put out all the music that I have. I have like 30 songs that I'd love to record, get finished, and that I could do an album a year for 2 years easily on that, and continue to put out music. And I'm finding more and more, like the more I'm in the industry and the more that I'm researching about artists, like one of my favorite artists, NF, he talks about, in one of his songs, he talks about working a full-time job and still doing it, and how impossible it is to get a career moving even after you get a record deal. Like, hey, I got a record deal. Cool. He was still working a full-time job even while he had a record deal, because it's that difficult. And I think there might have been, just in hindsight, there might have been some naivete for me to look at myself and be like, hey man, it's going to take me 2 or 3 years to get noticed. It might take me another 6 to get noticed. So if it takes me 6, I need full-time income to supplement while it takes me 6. It's a necessity at this point, because I don't like being stressed about it. From going to having a surplus amount of money and not being worried about money at all for the last 3 years, to be a little tight with it. It definitely doesn't drive me, and it doesn't drive my happiness. But at the same time, I'm going to be real honest, I think it's a biblical responsibility for me to be able to pay my bills on time, and have great credit, and do all those things because I'm capable of doing them, not because I have to, because it's within my capability. So that's a couple things that I've been going through and dealing with, and it's a bummer, because part of me, it's a half fail, because the timeline isn't what I wanted. I wanted a 3-year timeline, and I wanted to be done and quote unquote made it in doing. I am doing full-time music, but it's not at the income level that I need right now to grow and to buy a house and to do the things that I want to do. And I don't want the house for myself, to be honest. I want the house so I can make money on the house and rent it out, and get some cash flow on top. But those are some things that I want to do and I can't do without steady income and without a full-time job. So one of the interest plays, I'll fill you guys in next week as things get a little further down that road. Next week, like I said, the book that I'm reading is called Influence. I'm going to have an author for you guys. Flower Club is still going on. HSB, I'm not even going to promote it. Well, you guys will see this in like 4 or 5 months. By the time you see it, the business will either be dead or it will be flourishing. So, surprise to whoever's watching this. Go check it out. hsbweddingplanning.com. If it's there, good. If it's not, it's all good. We fell into the 95% of businesses that fail. But that's still going on. And if you guys are watching this, I'm back on Instagram, and I'm back on Twitter, and I'm back on MySpace. So check it out. I'm just kidding. I'm not on MySpace. Check it out. You guys can find me out there, and I appreciate you guys watching, and I appreciate you guys' support. I know it's been a while if you're watching this, and so thanks for staying with me, and I'll talk to you soon.